All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a white paper that's proposing something, well, pretty radical. A whole new way to measure the value of, well, everything in our economy.
And believe me, they do not pull any punches. Right on the cover, it kicks off with this incredibly bold statement, the end of fake prices. That's a direct shot, right? It's a challenge to the whole idea that the prices we pay every day are actually real or fair.
Okay, so that naturally leads us to the huge, kind of mind-bending question on this slide. How could you possibly use one single formula to price everything? I mean, from an entire country all the way down to a chocolate bar. It sounds impossible. All right, let's get into it.
So before they even get to their solution, the paper first builds the case for why we even need a new system in the first place. Their argument is that our current economic scoreboard, it's just fundamentally broken. And what's really fascinating here is how they break down these flaws. I mean, look at GDP. We think of it as this big, important number, but it just counts activity, not actual progress. The white paper has this wild example. A hurricane destroys a city, and then you rebuild it. Guess what? Both of those things increase GDP. It's absurd. Then you got market cap. That's more about investor mood swings than a company's real value. And don't even get them started on ESG scores. They're just dismissed as self-reported, unaudited, and all over the place. The whole point they're making is that we're obsessed with measuring quantity, not quality. And this right here, this brilliantly illustrates the real deep problem. All these metrics we use, they're based on things that are constantly changing, like the US dollar. The paper uses this fantastic analogy. It's like trying to measure a table with a ruler that's constantly shrinking and stretching. You're never going to get a true, stable measurement.
Okay, so after tearing down the old system, what do they propose? Well, they've built a completely new one, and it's all centered around something they call the equity index.
So this equity index, or EI for short, is just a single number, a score between 0 and 1. And here's the absolute kicker. It's dimensionless. It doesn't rely on dollars or euros or anything. What that means, in theory, is that you can use this one score to compare the equity-adjusted value of a whole country against a single company or even a product, all on the exact same scale.
And this slide really shows you the simple elegance of how it works at a high level. The whole formula just balances two fundamental forces. On one side, you've got prosperity, the good stuff, what makes life worth living, like happiness, wealth, health. And on the other side, you've got friction, all the bad stuff that holds us back, like poverty, corruption, and inequality. And this is it. The whole system boils down to this single formula. The equity index equals prosperity divided by the sum of prosperity and friction. But wait a second, friction is divided by this weird little symbol, phi. So what on earth is that?
Okay, this is where the white paper really goes off the beaten path. It takes this economic model and connects it to one of the most famous, almost mystical constants in all of mathematics.
That symbol is phi, the golden ratio, approximately 1.618. I mean, this is a number that just pops up everywhere in nature. You see it in the spiral of a seashell, the branches of a tree. It's like a fundamental blueprint for growth and balance.
But here's the craziest part, and this is the paper's central claim. They argue this number wasn't just chosen because it's cool or has some philosophical meaning. No, they insist it was discovered, empirically, in the data itself.
So how did they supposedly find it? Well, here's what they say they did. They took their formula, but they popped a variable in there instead of a fixed number. Then they just ran it against a ton of real-world data on human well-being for 139 different countries, and according to the paper, the value for that variable that best matched reality consistently landed on, you guessed it, about 0.618, which is exactly 1 divided by phi. So their claim is that the golden ratio is the natural, built-in balancing point between the good and the bad in human societies.
Okay, so that's the wild theory behind it all. But how do you actually apply this one formula to, everything? Let's take a look at the mechanics of how this system actually works. So the whole thing is built on what they call a universal architecture. It takes those two big ideas, prosperity and friction, and breaks each one down into 4 key dimensions. Things like happiness, wealth, poverty, and corruption. But the really ambitious part is that it applies these exact same 8 dimensions to a country, a company, and a product. The only thing that changes is the specific data point you use to measure each one.
Now, when you run something, a company, a product, through this formula, it doesn't just spit out a score. It actually generates 2 totally new kinds of prices. On the left, you've got EQV,
the equity value token. Think of this as the fair price, what things should cost if you factor in all the ethics. And on the right is LHV, the life hour value token. This is the true cost, the price of something measured in actual hours of human life, completely separate from any currency.
And this table just makes it all so clear. You can see the 3 different prices for each product. First, the regular market price we all know. Then, the system's calculated fair price and the life cost. Just look at that cotton t-shirt. The tag says $9.99, right? But its fair price is calculated to be only $6.33. That massive 58% gap, that's what the paper calls market distortion. It's a way to put a hard number on exploitation or just simple overpricing.
All right, so we've got a formula, we've got a framework, and we've got these new kinds of prices. But what's the point of all this? Well, the ultimate goal is nothing less than to completely rewire our economic incentives on a global scale.
And to back up their case, the paper presents this chart. They claim that their global equity index, when they back-tested it over 76 years, has been incredibly stable, with only about 13% variance. Now compare that to the insane roller coaster ride of global GDP or the price of gold. Their argument is that this index reflects true, slow-moving human progress, and that makes it a much more reliable anchor for an entire economy.
So it all comes down to this, and this is the most crucial point. The entire system is engineered so that having a higher equity index, which means being more ethical, treating people better, doing more good for the world, literally gives you more purchasing power. It's designed from the ground up to make being ethical profitable.
And that leaves us with the final, really provocative question that the white paper poses. What if you could build a system that doesn't try to fight human nature and self-interest, but instead it channels it to align with the common good? Could you actually create a global race to the top where being the best for the world is also the best for your bottom line? A radical idea, that's for sure.